In December of 1965, the South Wales town of Swansea was a buzz of activity. It was a busy, bustling industrial port city, producing vast amounts of goods for the worldwide markets. Heavily bombed and damaged by the war 2 decades earlier, it was well on its way back to prosperity and firmly in the grip of the swinging 60s. But behind one front door in an average house on an average street, things were about to take a very odd turn. The residents of Swansea were intrigued when the local paper ran the headline "The Ghost of Rhondda Street." Rhondda Street was situated in the Mount Pleasant area of the town and consisted of regular terrace homes. But outside one home, it was anything but regular. Scores of reporters and TV cameras from far and wide were crowded outside the home of the Howell family, whose story was at the centre of the newspaper headline. The story centred around 20-year-old Marcia Howell, who lived at the property with a husband and 2 young children alongside their grandmother, and it detailed some very unusual and frightening events said to have occurred over the course of a few days, which included furniture and clothes being thrown about, loud crashes and bangs, and even the police being called in to help the frightened family.
Do you believe in ghosts? No? Well, perhaps not. But then, a week ago, neither did the Howells family, who lived in this house here in Rhondda Street in Swansea. I say lived because so many strange and unexplained things have been happening in the house since Monday that the Howells have been forced to leave.
The alleged supernatural activity began when a bottle of children's medicine rose up off a mantelpiece and flew at Mrs. Howell, closely followed by a second. She instinctively gathered up her children and fled the house, running into her husband as he returned home from work. And upon hearing his wife's story, he immediately ran into the house, but did not expect to witness the scene before him. The entire downstairs had been turned upside down and looked completely ransacked, with the furniture and clothes and other items, including a heavy TV set, thrown into the middle of the room. Undoubtedly perplexed, more than a little perturbed, together they cleared up the mess, and after undoubtedly reassuring his wife, they put the incident behind them. So they thought.
The Howells, Marcia, aged 20, her 25-year-old husband David, and their 2 young children are convinced that the house has been invaded by a poltergeist. Mrs. Howells describes what happened on Monday afternoon.
Well, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and I just poured my little girl a cup of tea in my mother's room. I went out the back kitchen, and as I opened the door, this bottle came flying towards me. And of course I shut the door to protect myself. I opened it again and I seen this other bottle. So I just picked up the children and I ran out the house. As I ran out, my husband was coming down the street here, and he ran straight in the house, and by the time he got in there, the place was turned upside down.
Not 48 hours later, the bizarre activity resumed, with the family claiming to hear crashing and banging once again coming from the home. And after investigating, they discovered the house in disarray and a repeat of the previous incident. However, this time it extended to the bedroom, where a heavy double bed had been thrown atop the baby's cot, a feat requiring considerable strength. Thankfully, it was not occupied by the infant son at the time, but more baffling still was the fact that the bedroom door had seemingly been barricaded from inside, leading one to wonder how the perpetrator could escape the room and continue the campaign of destruction into the kitchen, from where a loud crash was heard, later revealed to be the heavy cooker being picked up and thrown to the floor. It was then revealed that this was not the first unsettling incident experienced by the family, who claimed that during the first few nights at the property, they were awakened by the sensation of being choked by unseen hands in January of 1965.
What sort of state was the kitchen?
It was terrible. The couch, the TV, everything just thrown in the middle of the room.
Yes.
But nothing happened on Tuesday, but yesterday, it was about 3 o'clock, and I left my mother and the baby in the front room while I went up to school for my little girl. When I came home, my mother was on the doorstep. I asked her what was the matter, and she said that she heard this noise and she couldn't get out the back kitchen because the door was jammed. She could just poke her head in, and seen that it had happened the same as it did on Monday. So with that, I went in the room, I pushed the door open, moved the couch. I looked out the back kitchen, nothing was touched out there. I went upstairs, and when I got upstairs, the bedroom was all upside down. My little boy's cot was in underneath the bed. If he'd been in it, he would have been killed. And I went clean down then, and we came out there and waited for my husband. When my husband came home, before my husband came home, we heard this other noise, but we didn't go in. Then my husband went in, we had a look, and everything in the back kitchen, my stove, everything was chucked about, on the floor.
A few days later, the local paper printed an update to the tale. Also residing at the home was Mrs. Howell's grandmother, and she told reporters that after inspecting the scene, she was satisfied that nothing of hers had been damaged, and that the paranormal vandal was targeting a particular victim. She also added that she would not return to the home even for £500, which was a considerable sum in the 1960s.
What was the state of the bedroom?
The bedroom it was a terrible state. Everything, my tall boy, the bed, the cots, everything turned upside down. And well, even the police, they had to break into the bedroom before they got there.
You called in the police. What did they say?
Well, they haven't got any explanation for it at all, because as I said, it couldn't be nothing human, because how could it get out of the front bedroom down to the kitchen when the police had to break in?
Now, you've moved out of the house for the time being. Will you be moving back?
I'm never going to move back. Never.
Well, what do you think? The police who were called to the house admit that they are completely baffled. And certainly it was no figment of imagination that threw the bottles around the room and turned the bedroom and kitchen into a complete shambles. The question that the neighbours around here are asking now is, could this happen to them?
Left feeling fed up and afraid, Mrs. Howell contacted the church, and one Father Martin Griffith of St David's ROC in Swansea agreed to bless the home. The priest is said to have spent some time praying and using holy water to cleanse the home, the power and blessing of God. In yet another update to the tale, the local paper ran another story centred on a Swansea resident, 74-year-old Harry Holmes, who was said to have 3 decades experience in investigation of haunted houses. The paper detailed that Mr. Holmes visited the house on Rhondda Street, taking with him a small black box containing a bell, which was expected to ring if anything moved inside the house. They said he spent 24 hours at the house, with only a pack of cigarettes for company, and afterwards he completely dismissed the idea of the home being haunted. However, he did speak of a streak of light about a foot long above the mantelpiece, but dismissed it as a reflection of a street lamp in a mirror. Whatever caused these alleged disturbances was never solved, and fearing for her family's safety, Mrs. Howell moved her family out, vowing never to return. The only incidents reported afterward were reports of hooligans trying to gain entry to the property, surely to satisfy their curiosity and a chance to be in a haunted house. The last mention of it in the papers was a plea from the family and neighbours asking to be left alone. Today the house still stands, just a regular terrace home. No reports of strange activity from the subsequent owners or the current occupiers. Just a regular home.